it's great to be here. So in the interest of being a lightning round, lots of slides, so buckle up and get ready. So I want to talk about the future of science and technology and innovation, and also the challenges that we face. So one of the key challenges is, and an example shown here, is the development of the web browser, Mosaic, was at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. The problem was it was commercialized in Silicon Valley. So even though we have incredible ideas and we innovate here in Chicago with all our great research universities and laboratories, sometimes we run into this trap of it leaving the city, leaving the state. So one of the challenges is how do we build that ecosystem to keep things here? So here's a cartoon of the Chicagoland innovation ecosystem. Up on the sun, you've got the various characteristics. We've heard some about it. Cultural powerhouse, strong work ethic, incredibly talented workforce, infrastructure for manufacturing and R&D. You've got along in the blue bubbles, you have some of the really differentiating players that we have. Great research universities. Some of the top universities in the world sit within the city of Chicago and surrounding regions. National laboratories like Argonne, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We've got great wins that push us forward. Support from the state. Great support from the city of Chicago to really innovate. So we're putting a lot of venture money into things like there's a lot of digital startups, a digital startup per day here in the city of Chicago, in the area. That's fantastic. We're diverse, we're dense in terms of our ideas and entrepreneurial activity and innovation and companies. We need to get even more diverse and more dense and think more broadly beyond even just the digital world into materials, and I'll talk more about that as potential opportunities for the future. This is Argonne National Laboratory. If you haven't been there, we're a little west of the city. Come visit, grab my card. We're always happy to have you as long as the government's not shut down. We'll be just fine. We are still open as of right now. So I'd love to have you out. We're 1,200 scientists and engineers. We're a Department of Energy National Laboratory, and we work on a lot of big problems around energy, environment, and national security. You heard about nuclear. We do a lot of work on that. But now we're working a lot more on things around renewable energy, for example, and I'll talk more about that. So we're one of the players in this ecosystem that I want to talk about. Here's a map of the Midwest. And now I want to show you the partnerships that one can create in the Midwest. All those logos. I don't expect you to memorize them, but it's Chicago as the hub of an incredibly innovative Midwest that can do everything from create new batteries to create advanced manufacturing processes, you name it. It's a wonderful opportunity. These institutions, industry, labs, universities, have relationships amongst each other. I could draw complicated diagrams all across how they're all connected. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I'm going to talk about some partnerships that we already have that, in fact, are actually utilizing some of these partnerships for strength, but it's a wonderful opportunity. I point out a couple things local to the city of Chicago. Many of you have probably heard of 1871, that incubator for digital startups that sits right over at the Merchandise Mart. That's a wonderful example of the sort of thing that we can build here in the city. So first opportunity that I want to point out is energy. That's a great slide. Bottled lightning. So I want to talk about energy, and specifically I want to talk about energy storage, batteries. So when you think about being able to transform the energy system and put renewable energy on the grid, a lot of renewable energy on the grid, as you all well know, the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine, so you got to be able to store it. Also think about taking cars, rather than a Volt that goes 40 miles, a Leaf that goes 80 miles, or a Tesla that goes 250 miles, think about a car that could drive 500 miles on a charge. We're thinking about that in a really big public-private partnership that I'd like to talk about briefly. So this is centered out of Chicago. That's important. Argonne is leading what is called the Joint Center for Energy Storage Research. It's a 5-year program, $120 million in federal funding coming into the region. That's a lot of money in the world that I live in to work on just trying to develop next-generation batteries. Not batteries like they're in your cell phone, but next-generation batteries that will do the sorts of things that I described. We're partnering with the University of Chicago, Northwestern, the University of Illinois, both Chicago and Urbana-Champaign, Clean Energy Trust, which is a local incubator group organization that's doing wonderful work. So we're working along with Dow and Johnson Controls, which brings in the Midwest field, working very deeply with these people to develop these next generation batteries, a big opportunity. This is a battery pack being manufactured at a GM plant in Michigan. We're also working very closely in an integrated way with the manufacturers to transform the way that they manufacture things. Also, I think there's a new paradigm in manufacturing. Rather than centralized manufacturing, let's think about actually distributed manufacturing, making things where they're being used. This happens to be an example of concrete that's done routinely in the business of making buildings, bringing concrete, say, to the Trump Tower or somewhere else you're constructing. But imagine if you could do that for materials for energy applications. Example, carbon fiber. This happens to be carbon fiber made from wood, a byproduct of paper production. Carbon fiber can be used for batteries. It can be used lightweight materials for cars, a whole bunch of wide range of applications. People are innovating this in the laboratory right now. We're in the position where we can start to scale it up and manufacture that in this new distributed model. Underpinning a lot of this is computing. This happens to be a picture of Mira. It's our IBM computer at Argonne. For those of you who know scientific notation, 10 to the 16 operating points per second. I can do 10 to the 16 calculations per second with this machine. Incredibly powerful. It will allow you to actually transform the way you manufacture things. Why? This is a computer simulation of a jet engine nozzle, actually. The pretty orange colors are temperature, and the blues are acoustic waves. But the point being that you can actually run design experiments for things like jet engines in the computer. So I can shorten the design lifetime and also optimize the value chain that one would construct to actually go build this jet engine. So computing is really the fourth leg of science. It's transforming the way that we do things. So the nexus of energy, manufacturing, and computing brings me to, I think, what is a really tremendous opportunity for Chicago, urban sciences. This happens to be a pictorial. Look on the lower part of the picture is Lakeside. If you know the old U.S. Steel site on the South Shore, McCaffrey Interests here in Chicago is actually working with U.S. Steel to develop that into a smart neighborhood. The Loop is way up there to the north along the lake. We're actually working with them along with Argonne, University of Chicago, along with Skidmore, Owings, Merrill, and McCaffrey Interests are working together to use computing tools to actually design this smart neighborhood, this smart small city within a city. Wonderful opportunity. Chicago is a wonderful place to be a test bed for these kind of technologies. Also, in the existing built environment, I want to give you 3 very quick examples of where recently the University of Chicago and Argonne has partnered with Google to actually solve some interesting challenges that face cities using computing and a lot of data. If you can mine a lot of data and you can analyze it. One example, this happens to be the city color-coded according to the square footage of the buildings. A lot of power when you can look at something like this with this fidelity to analyze for planning and analysis of cities. Also, another problem that's been solved. Cook County Land Bank is looking at foreclosed homes and how to focus their resources depending upon parks, crime rates, and a whole bunch of other things. You can analyze that. Everybody knows this one, bus bunching. I used to take the number 6 all the time. This was incredibly frustrating. 1 shows up and then you're waiting, and then 4 show up within 2 minutes. You can actually model this and understand it and imagine if the buses could talk to each other. Then finally, what if we could do the same thing for the divvy bikes? That would be unbelievable. Sense them, allow them to talk to each other. So I think, to wrap up, wonderful opportunity. This is now Lakeside again, now looking down towards Gary, down that way. Wonderful opportunity for Chicago to link up around big ideas and really transform the way we think about energy, manufacturing, and urban sciences. And I think it's a very bright future for Chicago.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Peters.